Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about When You're Strange, a film about the Doors from 2009. This is a winner of the Patreon movie review vote. If you would like for me to review a movie of your choice, then click on the link below and pledge, and maybe I'll be reviewing your movie next month. And this winner was chosen by Alex Zooks. So this is a documentary about the band The Doors from sort of beginning to Jim Morrison's death. It is pretty straightforward, but I do think it actually does some things that are fairly interesting. If you look this up, a lot of it's sometimes shown as an episode of American Masters. If you didn't know that about that PBS show, I'm sure maybe you didn't. But if there is a biographical documentary, a documentary that's about an artist, but usually what happens is American Masters buys those and then airs them as American Masters episodes. Sometimes they don't make theatrical distribution before that. I've seen a few that I forget which one right now. The people who made the Eames chair, I saw that one in theaters, and then it was on American Masters a year later. I've heard that with other ones, and I'm assuming that's what happened here as well. So if you find that, it is an actual documentary, but that's also how American Masters works. However, what this is about the Doors is this is directed by Tom DiCillo, I believe how you say his name. He's most famous for both being the cinematographer on Strangers in Paradise and directing the indie kind of movie within a movie thing, Living in Oblivion. And this is his story about the Doors, and it is narrated by Johnny Depp. What I think, I've seen a lot of documentaries about bands before. I used to be a huge Behind the Music junkie and VH1 Legends, which I think I saw the one on, I think the Doors got Legends, not Behind the Music. You had to be like really, like I think Bob Marley got Legends, Zeppelin got Legends, and then other bands got Behind the Music. I'm not sure how the distinction worked. Anyway, I've heard the Doors story like a bunch of times, and a lot of band stories. But what I liked about this, whoever wrote Tom DiCillo, DiCillo. That sounds like he both directed and wrote this. And what I really liked about the narration, I thought, I'm not the biggest Johnny Depp person, but I thought he performed it correctly, because you really get a sense of how short a time this band existed within. And I think they even said, like, they don't say it like once, they say it a bunch of times, and it kind of brings up like how sort of inexperienced they were, how young they were, how they were thrust upon so much. I think they said like a year after their first gig, they were playing on Ed Sullivan. Like, that's insane. And I think that adds to the insanity of the situation, bringing that up. You might just think like, oh, that's like a art, someone who's an art historian sort of thing. But no, it actually like brings a lot of context, which I actually thought was really smart, because oftentimes when you're watching a documentary, you're not thinking about that context. You're like, oh, this is the destined performance where they do this big thing and they're supposed to do this, and all this stuff. And you don't bring up like, well, this was like, if I don't know how much time goes from when the Beatles are playing in Germany to when they're on Ed Sullivan. But, when you think about it, like, they were not even 30 when the band broke up. And same with like the Doors, like, they're very young, they're very inexperienced, they were making albums really quickly, and they bring that up a lot in this, and I think it brings the band more into focus. I liked the Doors a lot when I was a teenager, and I don't listen to them as much now because I sort of overdid it. But I think there's so much mysticism or whatever, partly because of the Oliver Stone thing, movie, whatever. But also because of like, the whole idea of Jim Morrison, and like when he recorded the end, all the lights were off and like there was only a single candle. I remember this story, like my friends, even in college, like years after we saw whatever this alleged VH1 documentary was, would joke about that part. And they don't have that part in here. They bring up that the end's actually about like him breaking up with his high school girlfriend, which they both like the documentary takes seriously, but it's also like, it's a song about your high school girlfriend, so like there's a bit of melodrama. So it's like they both play it as these are sort of dumb kids, but at the same time, they were a very impactful band. They were huge. They had, I think it's like several huge hits, which they bring up several times. They were rebellious. They were really creative, and I like that mix, because it's both like, hey, this is a little silly, but it's also important. It's also interesting. this is also like who they are, what age they were. And at first I was confused why this, chosen and stuff like that. But I actually thought it was more interesting than like I'd heard about this movie since it came out. And this is the first time I saw it. And I actually thought it was probably the best documentary I've seen on the Doors. I know Ray Manzarek particularly for like years, any interview would bring up how he hates Oliver Stone's Doors movie. And I think this is a much better version of that. The Doors movie is sort of a mess. Val Kilmer's great as Jim Morrison. That's the only part I remember. I used to watch that a lot more. And a video store near me, somebody put like a flower sticker on the VHS, like a stoner flower. Anyway, maybe that was on all of them, and Oliver Stone did that himself. But it's a very good documentary. I actually thought Johnny Depp performed it well because he very much emphasized the things that I'm talking about. At first I was like, couldn't you have gotten like, I don't know, like Eddie Vedder, like somebody in a rock band, something like that. But I thought he was very good at understanding explaining the context, explaining the mythos. It keeps cutting to this thing called, I guess it's Highway, but it says HWY, an American Pastoral, which was sort of a movie Jim Morrison had made that's never really fully been released. And they keep cutting to that, like footage from that, which I thought was an interesting kind of like side narrative almost. I at the beginning, because again, like I've heard the story a lot of times, thought you could just get rid of this Johnny Depp thing and just cut to this weird stuff and just show clips. I mean, that's like the kind of documentary I'm more into, to be honest. But eventually, I came around to that narration. But I thought it was cool they used that footage and used it in this weird, like he's in the afterlife sort of thing. I sort of read into that, or a purgatory or something, just like watching him in a surreal way. And he's like, at one point he's hearing on the radio that he has died. Which is obviously like it's like an actual radio broadcast from when he died, but they put that in there. And I thought that context was interesting, but it did feel like this like crazy, weird spirit going through it, which obviously works within the Doors and stuff like that. And I like that it did bring up like they were as big as like, the Stones, and like I think they said the Who opened for them, which I didn't know. That's insane. I didn't know that. I was like, what? I don't know if I agree with that, but okay. I mean, I guess that's how big it was then, but it's just like bizarre to me that happened. Not that I don't like the Doors or anything, but I just like the Who's pretty influential. I don't know. Thought it did a good job of explaining the band, explaining the context of the band, and being weird at the same time, and not doing it like how Oliver Stone did it, which clearly like went into his weird like drug fantasies in the desert with the naked Indian guy. If you saw, wasn't that in Wayne's World 2, I think? Something like that. It was a very good Doors movie. I wish the only thing I would have asked them to do is, you really want to talk about the Doors' legacy in modern times, the biggest sample that and I think it's significant, I'm not trying to just blow smoke, the Jay-Z's song The Takeover uses a Doors sample, I think, because it uses the Doors song 5 to 1. I'm not just saying that as like, hey, please acknowledge hip-hop or Jay-Z or something. That's like a pretty significant song. It's like a big, one of the first Kanye West produced songs. It was his song in the beef with Nas. It's it's off the Blueprint, which is probably, many argue, his best album. I think it's the Black Album, but it's still like within the conversation. I was like, I would have liked to show the influence of the Doors, and like you could have shown that and been like, oh, cool. And like, I don't know, I think there could have been more things. You don't have to bring up like they let Scott Stapp sing with them and stuff like that. You don't have to tell us about that. But like, I would have liked to hear what the rest of the band was up to like after that, and we could have gotten more info, and we could have gone more into that. I thought that was the only real thing I thought was missing. Other than that, it's a very good Doors documentary. It was very good at explaining it and meeting it halfway and not going totally into myth, but also acknowledging that. And I thought the context it added to the band, it definitely makes me think of them in a different way. It got me to listen to them again. I still like the Touch Me song. I think is really good. I've heard two different things about the Doors when I was a kid, which was half they were a teeny bopper band, and half they're absolute legends who are super deep. And I think this kind of met both of those terms and kind of combined them and said that's fine that they're both. And I think that's like a perfect examination of that band and stuff. It's both like Jim Morrison was a magnetic frontman who was interesting and weird, also kind of a dick. So it's like I think it explained it, understood it, and presented to them in the probably best context I've ever seen the Doors. When you're talking about the Doors, it's always about the doors of perception, and I think the Doors were perceived very well in this one. So if you've seen When You're Strange and you'd like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. And if you would like for me to review a movie of your choice, then click on the link below and pledge, and maybe I'll be reviewing your movie next month. Thank you very much for watching.